across the far northern reaches of Alaska, there lies a landscape shaped by cold and carved by time. The air feels almost weightless here, as if sound itself hesitates before crossing the open space. Mountains rise in long white lines across the horizon, their slopes formed from centuries of snowfall pressed into dense blue ice. These glaciers seem still, yet they are always moving, drifting at a pace too slow for the casual observer to notice. Their presence dominates the land, and within that frozen world, a remarkable story waits in silence. For many travelers, a glacier appears empty. Its surface holds a clean brightness under the sun, and no obvious sign of life moves across it. Yet hidden within the layers of ice, a delicate form survives in conditions that seem impossible. It is a creature often overlooked, partly because of its size and partly because of its home. These are glacier worms, known in science as Mesenchytreus solifugus, and their existence challenges what many believe about the limits of life on Earth. To understand them, we must begin with their environment. A glacier is a world of structure and pattern. Temperature shifts cause the surface to melt and refreeze each day, producing thin sheets of water over darkened patches of ice. Beneath the crust, narrow channels form where meltwater flows downward. These paths carve their way through the glacier, creating tiny pockets of liquid water that stay cold but never quite freeze. It is in these pockets that glacier worms live, protected from direct sunlight and insulated by the steady chill of their surroundings. Emergence begins as the evening air cools. As the sun sinks toward the horizon, the glacier relaxes. Meltwater pools shrink, the surface softens, and conditions become ideal for the worms to rise. They appear in great numbers, tiny dark threads stretching and gliding across the pale surface. To the untrained eye, they may resemble bits of thread caught in the ice, yet each one moves with quiet purpose. These evening hours form the central window of their day, when feeding becomes possible and the glacier feels least hostile. Feeding relies on something most people never associate with glaciers: algae. Though the ice looks clean, thin films of microscopic algae cling to the surface and thrive in the filtered sunlight. Winds also carry dust and organic particles across the glacier, settling them into low spots where the ice melts slightly deeper. Glacier worms gather these particles with steady motion, consuming enough material to sustain their small bodies through the long hours hidden within the ice. Their size rarely exceeds a few centimeters, yet their resilience is extraordinary. Most worms require warmer surroundings to keep their bodies functioning. Glacier worms are different. Their enzymes operate at temperatures near freezing, and their tissues resist the formation of damaging ice crystals. This ability allows them to remain active at times when plants and many animals fall dormant. Heat, rather than cold, poses the greatest threat to them. Prolonged exposure to temperatures only a few degrees above freezing can be lethal. Their entire physiology depends on the glacier's stability. When the sun rises, the worms retreat. They slip back into the thin channels that lead downward, leaving the surface still and quiet once more. These channels may run several meters deep, and the worms follow them until they reach a zone where liquid water persists. Within these spaces, they rest during the day, protected from heat and light. Their retreat is not optional. A bright, warm morning could destroy any worm that lingers too long on the exposed surface. Their behavior is shaped not only by temperature, but by the glacier's constant movement. A glacier reshapes itself every moment, bending and shifting under its own weight. Crevasses open, old channels close, and new paths of meltwater appear. For glacier worms, these slow changes dictate where they can live and how they must move. A shift in the ice may open new feeding areas or wipe out entire groups. Their survival depends on adapting to these changes as they occur. To understand their origins, we look to their relatives. Glacier worms belong to a family of small segmented worms commonly found in forest soil and damp moss. Over long stretches of evolutionary time, one branch of this family moved into colder conditions, gradually developing unique adaptations. While other annelids depend on warmth and soft ground, These worms became specialists in environments dominated by ice. Their presence on glaciers suggests an ancient connection, perhaps formed during periods when ice sheets covered much larger parts of the continent. Their adaptations extend beyond cold tolerance. Glacier worms possess pigments that shield their tissues from the faint ultraviolet light that reaches the ice surface. Their bodies hold a dark appearance, likely helping them absorb small amounts of heat during their active hours. Scientists believe these pigments may also play a role in recognizing light levels, guiding worms toward conditions that suit their survival. Studying them brings its own challenge. Researchers often must travel across uneven terrain and wait through long hours of bright daylight before the worms emerge. When evening arrives and temperatures fall, the ice reveals its small inhabitants. Researchers gently collect samples with chilled tools to avoid sudden warming. These samples are then studied in laboratories kept near freezing, where the worms can be observed without harming them. Even with careful handling, they remain among the more delicate organisms to study. Their reproduction is less understood. Glacier worms are thought to produce cocoons containing several eggs, though the exact timing varies across populations. The eggs must withstand shifting ice, slow compression, and narrow channels of meltwater. Many may never hatch, buried too deep within the glacier to reach the surface during favorable conditions. Those that do survive likely emerge during summer, joining the nightly gatherings that sweep across the glacier when the light fades. Their ecological role, although modest, remains important. By feeding on algae and organic matter, glacier worms help maintain the glacier's surface chemistry. Their activity may influence how meltwater channels form, where algae accumulate, and how sunlight interacts with the ice. Small shifts in these factors can change the rate at which certain parts of the glacier melt. In a landscape shaped almost entirely by temperature and light, even micrometer-scale processes carry significance. This connection becomes more important as the climate warms. Glaciers across Alaska have retreated for many decades, thinning in some places and shrinking in others. For creatures that depend on stable, cold surroundings, these changes pose serious risks. The worms cannot simply move to new areas when conditions shift. They require intact ice, balanced temperatures, and consistent melt cycles. As glaciers reduce in size, their habitat diminishes. Surface temperatures rise earlier in the day, cutting short the worms' feeding hours. Meltwater channels may dry more quickly, leaving fewer safe zones for daytime refuge. The future of glacier worms becomes intertwined with the future of the glaciers themselves. Their fate illustrates how fragile certain forms of life can be, even when they have survived through natural changes over thousands of years. The accelerated pace of modern change creates pressures that these small creatures may not withstand. Yet their story is not only one of vulnerability. It is also a story that inspires curiosity about life's ability to adapt. Glacier worms thrive where expectations say life should fail. They challenge our notions about the environments that can support life and broaden the way we imagine survival. Their existence reminds scientists of the potential for cold-adapted organisms on icy worlds beyond Earth. If a creature can survive in the narrow melt channels of a glacier under an Alaskan sky, then perhaps life could persist on frozen planets or moons with similarly complex environments. As we follow their nightly rise to the surface, we begin to sense a larger rhythm. The worms appear as the light fades, moving slowly across the glacier as though responding to some ancient signal. Their gathering reflects a cycle that has repeated for countless years. With every movement, they carry forward a lineage shaped by patience and endurance. Their world remains quiet, yet every detail suggests a long story waiting to be recognized. Near the close of this journey, we may pause to reflect on what these small creatures represent. They ask us to look beyond the obvious and observe the subtleties of nature. A glacier seems barren at first glance, yet it holds worlds within worlds, each shaped by forces older than memory. The worms remind us that life often hides in the margins, thriving in narrow windows of opportunity and adapting to the most unlikely places. Their survival teaches us about balance, timing, and the delicate connections that bind ecosystems together. Stand for a moment on an Alaskan glacier as night approaches. The air sharpens, the ice glows faintly under a quiet sky, and the land settles into its nightly calm. Beneath your feet, a network of meltwater begins its slow retreat into deeper layers. Within that network, tiny creatures prepare for their rise. They emerge with the discipline of habit, responding to the gentle shift between day and night. Their movement tells a quiet story about endurance and the careful use of limited resources. Their world holds no grand displays of power or size. Instead, it offers a more subtle lesson about the resilience found in nature's smallest forms. Though the glacier worm lives only in narrow conditions, its existence enriches our understanding of what life can withstand. It reveals that even the coldest places carry stories shaped by hope, struggle, and adaptation. As the night deepens, the worms continue their motion before returning once more to the sheltering ice. Their presence fades with the returning light, and the glacier resumes its stillness. Day after day, year after year, their lives follow the rhythm of the melting and refreezing ice. And so, in a place shaped by cold and silence, the glacier worm endures. Its story flows through the hidden channels of the ice, carried forward by generations of creatures built to live in the narrow space between freezing and melting. In their quiet way, they illuminate the depth of the natural world. When we leave the glacier and return to warmer ground, we carry with us a reminder that every environment, no matter how severe, holds a history worth knowing. These modest worms reveal that the natural world is filled with remarkable forms of life waiting to be seen. In the end, the glacier rests under the soft glow of the northern sky, and deep within its layers, life continues. The story of the glacier worm stands as a tribute to nature's patience, resilience, and creativity. It invites us to look more closely, to appreciate the strength found in the smallest of creatures, and to honor the wonders hidden in the quiet corners of our planet.